I'm going to make one of my favorite items, being that I spent so much time working in New Orleans. We're going to make the least expensive of the gumbos, chicken and sausage. These are the basic ingredients. I can't tell you how important this one item is here. Do you see the color of that roux? That gives the flavor to the gumbo along with everything else. This is very important. Now, there are some people that don't use a roux in their gumbo. When I worked with Chef Paul Pruhome, he used almost like a vegetable soup looking gumbo, which was tasty. I prefer, unlike many others, making the gumbo that has body to it, thickened with this roux. Green pepper, fresh okra, you could buy frozen diced okra also, onion, celery, and chicken leg meat. Absolutely leg meat. Never the breast meat. It's just because it's a soup and the chicken sits in there, it's just going to feel dry in your mouth when you're chewing it. And the only reason why I'm making this, I just happened to see this company makes an andouille sausage. Well, I already tasted it, and it's so far from the real andouille sausage that comes out of Louisiana. But this is the best I can do. So use any smoked sausage you want, because this to me tastes a little bit more spicier than Hormel smoked sausage. It's the same, and there are a few important steps we're going to take. First, we have to have a good chicken stock. I'm going to poach the chicken. I'll dice everything up, and we'll go about putting this together. A few basic great ingredients, and it'll come out perfect. That's the roux, well, all the vegetables, and the stock. The first thing we're going to do, I have 2 quarts of water in there with the thyme and the bay leaf, and trust me, you know, after about 6-7 months of your dried spices and herbs, throw them out and buy fresh. I kept mine too long, and I bought the fresh one, the fresh dried, and when I open up the container, you could smell the freshness, so it means a lot. Anyway, so it's 2 quarts of water, the bay leaf and the thyme. I'm going to put the chicken. Now, I'm going to taste this chicken. Now, we know that you can't get a really good chicken stock unless you have bones. Well, we're going to see how this works out. So we're starting with the 2 quarts of water, and of course this is going to reduce, and by the time we're done with everything, it should be just the right amount of liquid to make the gumbo. So we'll let this cook, and then we're going to take out the chicken, and I'm going to taste it. And if it doesn't taste the way I want, then I will tell you in this recipe to take chicken stock and poach the chicken in the chicken stock, and then you have no worries. And also, to get the full flavor of the tomato, let's just put the tomato in with this. Let that cook and kind of break down, disintegrate. We don't have to see pieces. There is another important step that takes a little time, but this is the way it has to be done. You have to cook the okra, whether it's the fresh or the frozen. You cook that in oil. And you have to cook it until all the stringy sliminess is gone. So it's not a simple recipe. The first thing you have to do is go look at my recipe how to make the roux for gumbo. That'll take you standing in a skillet like this on a moderate flame. It explains it. A minimum of a half hour without leaving it. So, and I make the roux and I put it in the freezer. And whenever I need it, I have it. So I don't have to go through that aggravation. So what you do is just moderate flame, and we'll cook this. As I said, you can use frozen. So we have the stock working, the roux is done, and we have to have the okra finished. So we'll dice up the vegetables. And put a piece of the sausage in there. Why am I doing it like this? Because there's flavor in there. Actually, I could cut it, so we'll do that. I was going to put a whole piece of sausage into the stock, but I changed my mind. I'll let the chicken cook up a little, and then I'll add the cut up pieces of wannabe andouille sausage. If you noticed, you see that little string there, that has to be completely gone. So this takes a little while. And not too hot of a flame. You notice that, well, as it cooks, more string will come. And then it'll slowly disappear as we finish cooking it. We don't have to be so hot because we don't want to really brown this. You can cover this like that. It'll quicken the cooking, and we'll check in about another minute. Now with the okra, really lower the flame quite a bit. It's getting soft. It's easier to cook the fresh than it is the frozen. The only reason I'm making this recipe is because I found fresh okra. Sometimes I never see it. Okay, well, the okra is done. You can see that stringy, slimy stuff. Nice and tender. So we'll just hold that and wait till later. Now, while the chicken is still poaching, we still have to saute the vegetables. So we'll put them in here, and once this is done, putting it together will be very simple. So there are quite a few steps to take. I'm going to saute this. Clear, not on a high flame. And then we're going to transfer this into a larger pan where the finished gumbo is going to be made. Once we take the chicken out, and then also poach the sausage, or we can saute the sausage right here. Maybe we'll do that, because either way it's going to work, but I'm going to put it in there. Now, since we're dealing with smoked sausage, we know that it's cooked. It's just like bologna. Just looks a little different because the fat, it's ground in a larger hole, seasoned a little bit different. But other than that, it's still a piece of bologna. So you can saute that separate and crisp it up, or you can just do it like this, together with the vegetables. Now the chicken, right there, is fully cooked. So what do? Let's take the chicken out of the stock and reserve it for later. Just putting it on a plate with the okra. It smells pretty good, but I'm going to taste that stock and see if it's strong enough to finish the dish. or would we have to have chicken stock? Well, that broth, that stock that's there, has a nice flavor. I did add 1 teaspoon of sea salt in it while the chicken was cooking. So before I make a comment on whether to use chicken stock or not with the chicken leg meat, I'm going to completely finish the gumbo first. Now this is a delicate matter right here. We're going to thicken this stock with the roux. So you take the roux, and notice it's not overly greasy laying on top, which means it was the right amount of flour and oil, not butter, not for a roux. And the thing about this, I know just about how much to put in there, because after a few minutes it will thicken. And the color of the gumbo, as you've seen it, or you haven't seen it, is the color of the roux. So a nice mahogany colored roux will give you a beautiful color soup. Now this recipe, I'm making it on the fly. So when we get done, if I feel like there's really too much vegetable or not enough of this or that, I will adjust it on the ingredients. But I won't know until this is completely finished. And the difference in this dark roux than a regular roux, it takes a lot of the dark roux to thicken, because the flour loses that capacity to thicken the more it's cooked like this. And hopefully the amount I made yesterday is the right amount. So it's getting a little body right now, so I'm going to allow this to simmer for a few minutes, because it usually gets thicker after it cooks a little, and then we'll wait. Maybe I'll add more, maybe I won't. I'll just let this boil first. Well, it's boiling, and that's not enough roux, so we're going to add more. You should have the roux just warm before you add it to the stock. Remember, when making this, use a thick bottom sauce pot like that is, a wire whip, and I'm fortunate that the amount of roux I made was just enough. So this has to cook a little, but we're not going to let it cook alone. Now, to have all the flavors come together, we're going to add the stock to the vegetables, and this will cook and pick up all the flavor of what's in there. And also the chicken and the okra. Now we'll look at this and see if there are enough ingredients in there for the amount of soup that's there. Now, how do you serve this? Well, we're going to season this with salt and cayenne pepper, and it's going to be hot and spicy with the cayenne. And what you do is you boil up some plain white rice and make it a little bit soft. It just works better with this, in my opinion. And once you put the gumbo into a soup bowl, you put a nice ladle or a scoop of rice in the middle. You put a little filet powder over it, because you add the filet powder at the end. At least that's what I've been told. So I follow it, but that's not true because I've made it with the filet powder right here in this. And believe me, they both taste the same. But then I put it in at the very end also, just like if it was on the plate. So we'll let this come to a boil and then we'll taste it. I'm going to add the filet powder to this, and that's 1 teaspoon. And I will tell you also that you must have chicken stock to cook the chicken in. I mean, this is okay, but it's just a little bit weak in the flavor of the stock. And that'll be remedied by using chicken stock to poach the chicken. And then it should be delish. That's it, we're done. Just get a few plates, some rice, and enjoy it. And then the next time I make it, I'll make what I call the better one. That's the seafood gumbo. That's really exciting. This is very simple, you know, chicken, sausage, but at least you get started this way. And then you can play with this item using a fish stock, the vegetables, the okra, without the okra. You could try it yourself, saute, you can do many things. The basic idea of how to put this together. Enjoy. And after the addition of the filet powder, which darkens it even more, which brings it to the perfect color for the gumbo. And what is filet powder? Ground sassafras root